Hi everyone, a very good afternoon. You're watching the newsroom on ET Now. I'm Mubina Kapasi. What's the market up to as we speak? Well, we are recuperating from the day's low as we once again go above the 11,300 mark. But we're more or less flattish with just some losses being witnessed as we speak. So flittering between the red and the green. Sensex as well as flat can be. But we are seeing this continued uptick come by in some stocks, and that's what we're going to flag off today as well in trade. So let's just get straight to that. First, I've got to flag off the telecom stocks, and I'm going to talk about two stocks here. One is Vodafone-Idea, and the second is Bharti Infratel. So let's first take a look at Vodafone-Idea. We just, of course, had that announcement with respect to strategic plans going forward for the company, changed the logo and announced several strategies on how they're going to cope going forward, braced as well for a rise in prices. But furthermore, more important news flow rather came in on Friday evening and the weekend. Firstly, a 25,000 crore rupee fundraising plan, and secondly, what the parent company has said with respect to their refusal to pump any more funds into the India entity, that's Vodafone-Idea. So that's essentially the more important news flows coming in. 12 Vodafone-Idea. And in the same breath of telecom, I want to also flag off Bharti Infratel because of the continued up move seen in this counter. It's another 4% of gains being witnessed on Bharti Infratel. And remember, last week we had the stock at roughly about 202 rupees. It's seen quite a surge to 223 rupees. So, the month of September itself has seen quite a sharp up move come by in the stock price of Bharti Infratel at 223 rupees. So it's up almost 8% in just the last two trading sessions. More stocks in news. Take a look at Jubilant Life Sciences and the numbers delivered by the company. Revenues are at 1,893 crore rupees, down 13%. The EBITDA has fallen by a much sharper quantum, 310 crores, down 30%, and hence there's margin compression of 400 basis points. Margins have come in at 16.4% versus 20.4%, and the profit after tax as well has, as a result, declined by 52% at 88 crore rupees. So I think the last time I checked, Jubilant Life Sciences was down by about 5%. Let's see what BPCL as well is up to at this juncture, if we are seeing any momentum in that stock price, because we have a brokerage note as well that has come in over here. This is with respect to the plans going forward for the company, especially in light of essentially the entire divestment bit. Now, Morgan Stanley as well has maintained an overweight. They see that the note released by the government has highlighted progress in the process despite a few delays, and they believe that as demand recovers, they should see a V-shaped margin recovery. We in fact had a conversation as well earlier in the day with BPCL. Okay, well, let's move on and bring on board SoftBank Bank's e-commerce major Snapdeal, with whom we had a conversation with. Remember that in 2017, this is the company that almost ran out of cash, but it scripted a turnaround story. And the COVID-19 pandemic has further boosted its business, with the platform witnessing a surge in buyers, especially from small towns. Snapdeal's co-founder and CEO Kunal Bahl spoke to ET Now's Chandra Shrikant about his plans to go public and if it will buy out the over 2% stake held by Alibaba in the company. Bahl, remember, is also a prolific angel investor and heads the CII's Committee on E-commerce.
Over the last 3 months, we've seen over 5 million first-time buyers who've come online and transacted on our platform. Nearly like 90-95% of them come from very small towns, right? Definitely outside of the top 20-30 cities that we would all know of in regular course. And I think that's very, very encouraging, because we've realized that given the supply chains were so significantly disrupted during this period, the only place that the consumers could shop was online. And while things have opened up now, thanks to all the unlock initiatives that the government's been leading, however, there is some amount of a behavioral shift that we believe will be permanent in nature. Alongside that, we've seen on the supply side about 10,000 new sellers who've come on board.
Right. Kunal, I read a a couple of months ago that Snapdeal is now profitable at company level. Can you give us a sense of, your own unit economics, the daily shipment volumes, GMV, some of these metrics that will help us to understand where Snapdeal is?
Yeah, so I think in the last 12 months, we had about 30 million unique customers who transacted on Snapdeal, which is a pretty sizable number if you think about it. That's 2% of India transacted on Snapdeal over the last 12 months. And this is while we being very focused on ensuring that the economics of the business are great. I think at any economics, you could have theoretically the entire nation transact with you. However, it is, I think the cumbersome task or the Herculean task is how do you ensure that you are able to make money on everything you sell while having a sizable number of consumers transact on the platform. So we are encouraged by the traction on the platform while continuing to stick to our focus of ensuring that we have positive unit economics. We over the last 1 year and even through this year, we will make significant investments to enhance our customer and seller experience. And while those may show up as significant one-time expenses, we feel those are the right investments to make for the long run. And these could be investments in supply chain. These could be investments in increasing the seller network. These could be investments in technology. So we want to traverse this delicate balance of ensuring that on a unit economics level, we are always positive. However, if there are one-time investments that we need to make for the long-term benefit of experience of our buyers and sellers, we're not shying away from those as well. And we have the balance sheet strength to do that.
Right. Kunal, how are you going to fund these investments? Because I remember, the 2014, 2015 phase where you were this hyper-funded, largely funded unicorn, and then the 2017, 2018 phase where you just cut down burn, I think, by 95%, you divested assets to get things back in shape. So how are you going to fund these investments going forward? And there are also reports that Snapdeal might consider going public. Take us through some of these plans.
Sure. Look, we have cash on the balance sheet. So while we haven't had the need to raise capital, we have cash on the balance sheet and we are a fairly capital efficient company. We, in the last 1 year, the per employee revenue of our company was somewhere in the 1.2 crore revenue per employee, which is, I would argue, of global standards, right? So we are incredibly capital efficient while having sizable revenues and sizable scale. But we have cash on the balance sheet, given our burn is very, very low or minimal. We believe that for certain one-time investments, looking into the future, we should be open-minded.
Right. And do you have plans of going public anytime soon?
I think I expected you would ask the question. Look, I think we've been very focused on building the right business, right? I think going public requires a few ingredients. The ingredients being having high degree of predictability in the business. Right? E-commerce businesses by design are slightly volatile businesses, especially in India where you're at least right now, you have lockdowns, you have floods somewhere, etc., which are unfortunate events. But volatile businesses don't make for good public companies, right? So we want to make sure that we are over the next year, 2 years, making sure that we have all kinds of predictability of levers of growth built into the business. I think at that point in time, we would consider going public, but there's no rush at our end.
Right. And the other news from the regulatory front, of course, is the action that India has been taking on Chinese apps. I mean, this week you had another round of Chinese apps getting banned. What's your view on this? And I know you've been asked this question about Alibaba before, owning a less than 3% stake. Will you perhaps look at buying them out so that, that question is not there at all going forward?
I think, look, I would leave that to the decision of the respective shareholders. I don't think it's really my decision as such. We as entrepreneurs, we build our businesses along the way.
All right, well, we'll do one thing. We'll slip into a very short break right here on the show. But when we return, Maruti Suzuki will be joining us to talk about demand, about the recovery being witnessed, and the update on supply as well. Stay tuned. Okay, welcome back. You're watching the newsroom on ET Now. Let's now talk about Maruti Suzuki. Remember that in the month gone by, we had seen a nice recovery come by in the sale of passenger vehicles. So, it'll be interesting to understand what the trend is when it comes to demand and, across different product segments. And, look at the chart as well of Maruti Suzuki, especially, in the last 6 odd months. There's a steady up move that's been witnessed. Not a very rapid one, but quite steady, especially if you have to compare it from, that lows that we saw in the beginning of April. We started off in April or this fiscal year at about, 6,000 odd rupees, 4,000 rather, and now we've moved to 7,200. A very steady up move being witnessed with very few dips in the middle. Well, let's now bring on board the management of Maruti, Mr. Shashank Srivastava. He's the Executive Director for Marketing and Sales, and he joins us now in the show. Thank you so much, Mr. Srivastava, for joining in. So August sales picked up, not compared to the previous month, but compared to August 2019 as well. How are you seeing demand trends, shaping up? And, we are in the midst of a weak economy. Do you think that would perhaps impact affordability of cars in any manner?
As you rightly pointed out, there has been a month-on-month improvement. So April, for example, was a 0 for the industry because of the lockdown. May was a little better because that's the time when retail started opening up. June was better than May. July was better than June. August was better than July by almost 15-16%. So I think there has been a month-on-month rapid progress after the lockdown started in March and then subsequently lifted sometime in the May first week. But then the comparison with last year, July, August, for example, might be a little misleading because last year, if you recall, Q2 was really bad for the industry. August, in fact, was the worst month if you see the last whole year, except March, because March was affected by the lockdown completely. So although, yes, the industry has shown growth over last August, but I'm a little, probably reading too much into that might be, I believe, a mistake. Going forward, yes, the demand bounce back has been there. I'm a little uncertain about the future at this time. And therefore, the industry itself actually has not been making any prediction for the future because, as you know, the industry sales, the long-term industry sale depends on the economic fundamentals, the GDP per capita growth, where there is a very high correlation of almost 0.986 with the GDP per capita income growth. So that depends a lot, future demand depends a lot on how the economy shapes up. And also because car buying is a discretionary purchase, it will be affected by sentiments. And sentiments at this time is going to be determined by which way the COVID goes. So we could have a virus downside or a vaccine upside. We really don't know. And we did find, of course, in August, a good bounce back, especially in areas like Kerala, where there was Onam, and also in the western part of India, where we had the Ganesh Chaturthi. So this is a little uncertain. It's difficult to predict which way the market will move. But yes, there has been a good bounce back.
So you mentioned that it's difficult to predict demand. Are you seeing this trend across segments? And do you think your peers are facing similar trends in the segment that you're present in?
Yes, so I was referring to the overall demand. But of course, the relative demand in this segment across segments will be different. We already see that in the data which is available for us for the period April to August so far. For example, it was expected, and it is logically and also by consumer research, that people will downgrade their choices towards the lower end of the spectrum. In other words, a large car buyer might go for a middle level car, a middle level to a entry level to used car, and used car to two-wheeler, and so on and so forth. So that is something which we observe. And what we observe is that the buying of first-time buyers have increased. This is now clear from the data. Earlier, it was a speculation based on logic and also based on consumer research. But now we can actually see that first-time buyers have gone up by about 4-5%. We also see additional car buying going up because people are shunning public transport in favor of personal transport. And also we see that one clear trend that the replacement buying has come down, which is because people are holding on to their older vehicles a little longer before they upgrade to the new cars. So yes, segment-wise, the relative demand is differently affected. Of course, we have seen an uptick in the SUV demand as well as a segment, but I think it's also related to a lot of new models which have been introduced in that segment. New model introduction always gives a boost to the immediate demand in any segment. And we have seen that in the SUV segment as well this year.
Okay, the festive season is around the corner, and that's really a great opportunity as well for auto companies to recoup any lost sales because of the lockdown. So the question is, would you be coming up with promotions, offerings to lure the customer?
Yeah, so this is, I think, by far a very common question which is being asked, whether the sales promotion amounts will go up for the consumers during the festival season coming up in October and November. I think while the demand pattern itself is very uncertain, as I just mentioned, for various reasons, it is also true that the cost pressure on the manufacturers have actually gone up because of the currency movements, the movement upwards of such rare earth material as palladium, which goes into the making of BS6 vehicles, which is now the norm. And also because of the loss of volumes in Q1, there would obviously be pressure on the manufacturers for in terms of volumes and also profits. Apart from that, remember, a lower capacity utilization leads to a higher per unit fixed cost. So I think the cost pressure is there on the manufacturers. At the same time, there is no denying that the festival season is very important for making up the volumes which the OEMs have lost so much in Q1. So there is that fine balance. And again, I will not like to say that discounts will go up or promotions will go up. I think there will, my personal take is that probably it's not going to go up drastically as is expected. And remember, I also believe that consumers are actually looking at value rather than discount. And it is in that light that we have seen a lot of consumers post-pandemic shifting to more known brands, more reliable brand, more dominating brand. And that is where the value of the brand comes into the picture. And I think Maruti Suzuki is well placed in that sense because we have a huge network. We have a good presence. We are known as for our quality and reliable manufacturing. And that is the reason why we have seen the shift also in manufacturer market share terms towards the very better known brands. I think in balance, I would expect promo levels not to increase drastically.
Okay, all right. Well, let's talk about the rural segment, which obviously has been doing well. So, what's the demand trend or the sales you've been seeing in the rural areas, and also if you could share with us the traction that you're witnessing on inquiries on the digital front?
Yes. So, as far as the rural demand is concerned, yes, the bounce back which we have seen in the recent months we have seen a better bounce back in rural areas. And the reason is that we have had a very strong Rabi crop last year, about 151 million tons, which is the highest ever. We also have seen a very good Kharif sowing in the season, more than 1,000 lakh hectares already sowed, which is again about 7-8% above last year. And we also see a very good monsoon. So far, I think I was checking yesterday, it was about 10-12% over last year. And it's been much more uniform this year. So a very positive stories as far as rural goes. And the other thing is that the COVID areas, the containment areas, the red spot zones for COVID are more towards urban centers, like you had Chennai or Bangalore or Mumbai, Pune, Delhi, etc. So I think all in balance, therefore, the rural demand has seen a much better bounce back. And I can see that in August also, even though urban areas also grew, rural growth was much faster. By the way, this has been the trend in the last 10 years as the economy is expanding and rural incomes are going up. With the result that what used to be 8-10% of the total portfolio in Maruti Suzuki, rural sales is now almost 40% of the portfolio. As far as the digitalization is concerned, yes, one of the big trends, which I think has emerged very clearly from the post-pandemic era, has been the digitalization levels which consumers want for purchase of anything, including cars. And there has been a digital platform which is being developed by different OEMs. Maruti Suzuki is a very strong digital platform. Our web inquiries, which were just about 3% or so 3 years back, and we started the process of digitalization actually pre-pandemic. We didn't know that pandemic will come, but we knew that this was a trend. And now after the pandemic, actually the acceleration has been very high towards digitalization. As a result, almost 35% of our inquiries now come on the digital platform. That's the way it's going to be, I think, even once the world and India recovers from pandemic. I think the digitalization is here to stay, and Maruti Suzuki has been trying to digitalize all the touch points with the customer. There are 26 such touch points, and we have digitalized almost all of them, except, of course, the test drive and the delivery of the car.
All right, Mr. Srivastava, thank you so much for joining us today on the newsroom. That's Maruti Suzuki talking about the sort of recovery being witnessed in demand. The festive season sales as well is something, that's going to be on everybody's radar. Just before we slip into a short break, take a look at the flashes appearing at the bottom of your screens. The RBI will be conducting some bond purchases and transactions. In fact, 10,000 crore rupees via OMOs. Remember that this is coming in the midst of some volatility that we've been witnessing in yields. We first saw that initial spike in yields to beyond 6%, but once again a drop below 6%. So all of this action conducted by the RBI on the bonds front does tend to have implications for yields.